Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 105th episode of the Manor Podcast. I'm your co-host, Roger Bodee, joined as always with my best friend and other co-host, Michael Hamilton. Michael, have you ever built your own, PC?
Yeah. The computer that I'm using to record right now, I ordered the parts and put them together. They're basically like fancy Legos. So it's not that.
That's a good analogy. That's what I use.
Yeah. So I've built my computer, I guess, and then I helped Casey build her gaming computer as well. So I also helped my sister build hers. So I've built a few computers in my days. I'm probably getting a new computer soonish. This computer is very loud, and I've had it for 8 or 9 years now, so it's kind of old too.
Okay. I feel like building computers is one of those things where, to people who don't know anything about building a computer, if you're like, I built my own computer, we're like, wow, you're like some kind of techno wizard. You could build a computer? It's impossible. It's like a magic machine. You can't build a computer. You must be a genius. And you're like, as you put it, it's just fancy Legos. You literally just look at a little diagram online. It's like, yep, I attached the motherboard here, and I put this little chippy-doo here, and then I put this in here, and then boom, I got a computer.
Yeah, I think you buy a case and 6 or 7 parts, and you just put them where they go in the case, and then you plug it all in, and then boom, you build a computer. You did it.
It's not like you're soldering the motherboard and connecting wires.
If someone told me they built a motherboard, though, I would be pretty impressed by that. That sounds intense. Yeah. There's so many little doohickeys on a motherboard.
That's a very technical term, right?
Yes, the doohickeys.
But that falls into the same category as, I feel like, cooking, where there are a lot of people who say, I can't cook. And it's very similar, where you just look up a set of instructions online and you literally just follow the step-by-step instructions. And if you get confused, I guarantee you there's a YouTube video of somebody cooking that thing that you can then watch to also show you how to do the thing. I guess that's just everything in 2024. There's just so many resources available to do pretty much anything these days.
Yeah, some things aren't as simple, just follow the steps as cooking, where you have the same ingredients, you're combining them the same way, and you just do it the exact same as a video. If you're trying to do repairs in your house, sometimes parts of your house.
Or build a hydrogen bomb. I got lots of hydrogen around here.
I was gonna say parts of your house might be different. The pipes might not line up with other people's pipes. I don't know.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I always found it really weird in anime. There's a very common trope in anime where someone can't cook, and it's just you give them a set of instructions. They're like, no, I wanted to try it this way. And it's you're bad at cooking. Why don't you just follow the directions one time and see what happens?
Yeah. Oh, well. You know what there's not instructions for online, though, Michael?
Being sponsored by the Realm Games.
Being sponsored by the Realm Games. You can't look up how to do that. There's no guide out there for being sponsored by the Realm Games. You got to go out there, build your own podcast, have your co-host win the world championship, have dozens of people listen to you every week, and the prestigious card stores like the Realm Games might sponsor you. I guess if I had to build a guide, that's how I would do it.
Yeah, there's a recap of what we did. Or what you did, I guess.
Yeah, because your co-host hasn't won Worlds.
Not yet.
I did book my flight and lock up a PTI for Osaka, so got that going for me.
Yeah, that's step 1 down.
This will be my first World Championship that I've ever had the maybe I will win 100% of the World Championships I've played in. I've never played in a World Championship before. There's only been 2. I missed the first one. You were busy winning that one. And I missed the second one because it was in Europe and I had a whole life crisis that was preoccupying me during then. And I'll make it to the third one because it's in Osaka and I don't plan on having any more life crises coming up.
Do you ever plan to have a life crisis?
Yeah. Sometimes you just got to make sure you're I want my life to fall off the edge of a cliff in November this year, you know?
Yeah, after Osaka.
Yeah, mid-November.
If it happens at the start of November, you'd already be in Osaka, right?
Yeah, I don't want my life to fall off like a Japanese cliff. That'd be scary. That's planning to commit seppuku, right?
I believe
That's just
that is
ending my
correct.
life then.
Yes. So anyway, the round games is real cool. They have cards and stuff for sale. They're holding an Alpha Clash tournament coming up in, oh gosh, it's in Florida. I don't remember where. In Florida.
Orlando.
Is it Orlando?
It could be.
Somewhere in Florida. There's a big Alpha Clash Ground event coming up. I'm looking forward to it. Haven't booked my flight yet, but I'll be there. And yeah, the new set is pre-releasing. It's like the world premiere at that Clash Ground. They're doing a big sealed event on Sunday. Looking forward to it.
We got some spoilers today. We got our spoiler cards today. We got 6 spoiler cards.
Yeah,
Just a lot of spoiler cards.
those are not to be shared until I think the first one's towards the end of August.
Yeah. Don't worry. I won't say anything about King Arthur. Oh no, wrong.
Okay. So today's episode not about Alpha Clash. Talk about the Pro Tour that just happened, right?
Yes, it was a great Pro Tour, and everybody is in love with the meta and had a great time and is really happy with everything in the State of Flesh and Blood from everything I've been seeing. So we're going to talk about all the magical deck lists that make everybody happy. And starting with everybody's happiest hero that they love to play against and have really fun and engaging, lots of fun games with by Tariq Patel.
Yeah. So there were 3 news in the top 8, one of them being Tariq Patel. The bracket ended up really weird where it was like the 4 assassins were on one half and then the 3 Zens and the Levia were on the other half. So we didn't actually get to see that much of assassin versus ninja gameplay to know how the matchup really looks, at least not in the top 8. But yeah, so Tariq played new, 2 other news. What do you want to talk about in his deck?
It does not look at all like my deck list, despite me spending weeks before nationals during national season testing new with Tariq Patel. He took none of my lessons. He could have won the $100. The $100 could have been all his, but there's no scar for his scars. There's no razor reflex. It's just blech.
Yeah, instead we see 3 copies of Hiss, 3 copies of Venomous Bite, just all the assassin specific attack reactions.
Looking for scrap.
I actually think looking for scrap is similar to Scar for Scar, where you're getting your 1 point above rate attack. It sets up your codex lines pretty nicely if you have a 2 cost in your discard that you want to codex back, and you don't have to swing a dagger and have Tunic to do it. You can go pitch a blue, play looking for scrap, play codex on your 2 cost, which is great. I don't think it's that bad. I think it does a similar thing to Scar, but relies on having a blue.
Yeah. I don't know, not my cup of tea. I never enjoyed playing with looking for scrap. I did try it for a long time, never enjoyed it. I think what's interesting here, out of a couple of things, 1, 3 copies of Red Blanche. We're blanching them.
Yeah, I think that's a sideboard card for Prism.
Right, yeah, 100%. It's a 7-powered popper, and then not only that, if you attack with it, Prism probably cares about pitch colors of a certain kind being in their pitch zone to give their attacks go again.
Yellow ones.
Yeah, I don't imagine it comes in against Zen. Maybe I'm wrong there, but it's not really what that matchup's about. And
I think against Zen, with 3 CNC, 3 Weakest Link, 3 Leave No Witnesses, and 3 Codex, they already do have a good amount of disruptive finishers. Though, honestly, that 12 is a little bit lower than I've seen a lot of other lists have.
Yeah.
Though I guess the blues also can fill that role, like Persuasive Prognosis and Bonds of Agony are going to be staples in Assassins for probably forever.
Mm-hmm. And the other interesting include here is Oasis Respite, because I remember having many discussions where Tariq said, you can't ever beat Kano anyways, why even include these cards? And here he is, including Oasis Respites, despite him never planning on ever beating a Kano anyways.
Yeah. AB2 plus Oasis in his deck. I don't know. Kano seems like a pretty tough matchup for new. You can kind of get some equity from like shuffling their deck with Bonds of Agony, so they can't stack that well against you. And you're kind of if it makes it hard for them to stack, and then first cycle you have like Oasis and AB2, I can see. I still would expect the matchup to be pretty heavily Kano favored, but I don't think it's 0%.
Yeah, I was happy with it. I was happy with the matchup. Not I didn't think I was favored or anything like that, but I didn't think it was horrendous. Uh, so that's why I was included the Oasis Respites. But I know not everybody always shares my opinions, which is weird. But yeah,
yeah. So weird.
there's also so if we also then look at the blues here, there's 3 blue double trouble, which isn't really common. Not really the choice of blue stealth attack that is commonly seen. And there's only 2 blue pick to pieces, but there's still a Vambrace of Determination floating around in the sideboard. So it's like your 2, like if you're cutting pick to pieces, do you really need like how much equity are you really getting with like your 1 Vambrace for that slot? I guess I don't know.
I do think that 1 Vambrace is probably worth more than the 3rd pick to pieces if you're just trying to shore up your Enigma matchup a little bit. I don't know if there are other things that would benefit a lot from having these extra slots. Enigma is both not very commonly played, and you're probably not beating her even with the slots.
Wasn't Enigma the 3rd most played deck in the Pro Tour? I thought it was literally the 3 Mystic Heroes 1, 2, 3.
I think Enigma and Prism both had 32. So
Yeah,
I guess that is a decent representation. That's like 10% or something. So
yeah. I can't imagine why people brought. I guess if you just hope to dodge all the Zens and then you're like, aha, if everybody goes to level 2, I'll go to level 3. But like nobody ever goes to level 2 in Flesh and Blood. Everybody plays the level 1 deck.
yeah, I think that together there were similar amounts of Assassin and Guardian as there were Zen, if you throw in the Victors and the 2 Uzuri players with the news. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're saying all those matchups are like heavily favored as Enigma, I don't think it's the worst choice in the world, but with the meta ending up being around 30% Zen, it was probably not the best tournament to be Enigma. But I think in a world where you dodge the Zen, I think Enigma is actually really, really strong. I don't think she really has any other negative matchups besides Zen right now.
What do you think Zen's reputation or representation would have been if there weren't any bans? Like if he was just full, they didn't touch him at all, and they just went into this tournament. Do you think he hits 40%?
Hard to say. I do think there are a few more Zens, but I think even in the metagame where the first Pro Tour where Starvo was probably the best deck, he didn't reach 40%, I don't think.
I don't remember.
So I don't know if we've ever seen a hero reach 40% at the PT3 that Michael Fung won with Oldheim. I don't think Lexi was 40% there.
No, Lexi was pretty underrepresented. Well,
yeah, she was only like 20 something percent, right?
Yeah.
So I think we might have reached 40%, but that would have been like a new record for the most played deck.
True. Any other notable cards that you're seeing floating around in here?
I don't think so.
He has D-React Light, the just 3 Simple-Os, no Fate for Scenes, and I know Inertia Trap. I think that's the one that cares about buffed attack power, right?
Yeah.
I think that card was floating around for a while, especially as a tech card for the mirror. I know that card was seeing some play. So, yeah.
I think in new specifically, we'll talk about Uzuri later, but I think one of the weaknesses of new is you need to keep a blue count very high for all your transcend cards, for your levels of enlightenment, for just for your deck to really like do what you're trying to do to make sure you can pitch blues to play your hisses and your venomous bites. You have to keep your blue count pretty high, and with that comes the cost of you just don't get to play as many good reds or as many like situational reds because you have to make room for. I think there's 32 blues in this list, and you really want to be in that 30 plus range.
True.
And then we saw like 10 more than 10 equipment.
It is a lot of equipment.
11 with counting the daggers as equipment.
What I do like is that there's no flick knives in here. I'm not a fan of that card in new.
Yeah, the value of a rousing wave is quite high, but with like even just playing your 2 cost for 6 power with it up is very threatening. And also you just need the extra reactions for your Bonds of Agony. So it
Yeah,
makes sense.
especially with these double troubles floating around as well.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Ready to move on to some Levia.
Yeah.
Kevin Zänker.
Yeah. So Levia is a hero that I feel like has been very good for a long time. I don't think she's as good as Zen right now, and that's kind of a rough spot to be. But the the deck itself is very powerful. The cards in the deck are very powerful. The being able to flip into Super Levia, consumed by Plasma Fed or whatever, is very very powerful. It's cool to see Levia finally top 8 one of these. What are they called? Tier 4 events, the big ones.
Yeah. So I guess I haven't seen a man sent list in a while, but this list is striking me as having some man CNT vibes. Because there's a lot of like 1 and 2 just sprinkled out throughout this whole list. For example, there's 2 Command and Conquers, 2 Red Graveling Growls, 1 Guardian of the Shadow Realm, 2 Red Pulpings, 2 Weakest Links. Yellows are just like this whole hodgepodge of 2 Agile Windups, 1 Hungering Slaughter Beast, 1 Mark of the Beast yellow, and then blues are also have the 1 Convulsions, 1 Diabolic Offering, the 1 Doomsday, but you know you can only play 1 of that card anyways. There's an Eye of Ophidia floating around in here, and a Soul Harvest.
Yeah, Eye is not a card I've seen a lot in Levia, but it does make sense to me. You really want to make sure that when you're casting your Blood Rush Bellows, you're drawing more resources because you want to pitch a blue, play Blood Rush Bellow, and draw at least 1 blue. A lot of the time, you just want to draw 2 blues so you can go Claw, Claw, plus play another big attack, or sometimes even Claw, Claw, Dread Screamer, another attack on the biggest turns. So I like I I think it makes a lot of sense. Not something I thought of, but it does make a lot of sense. As far as other one ofs, a lot of the one ofs are cards that you never want to draw 2 of. Like you never need a second Convulsions from the Bellows of Hell. You're just when you draw it, if you're playing it, it's because you need to dominate a big thing to finish them off.
Mhm.
Um, the Guardian of the Shadow Realm is very commonly played as a one of because this is another card you don't ever want to draw 2 of. If you draw, I don't know, if you draw 2 of this in the same hand, especially if you don't draw a blue in that hand, it just feels horrible. And once you play this card and then you banish it to one of your random banish effects, then after you flip into Plasma Fat, you can kind of get value out of having this in your banish zone where you get to play 1 card per turn from your banish zone, and you can play this on your opponent's turn, so it doesn't take away one of your offensive cards. It just turns a yellow or a blue into 6 value on defense.
Yeah. Uh, a card that I'm surprised to only see 1 copy of is Diabolic Offering. I guess it's not the most played card, I suppose, but it's a card that I have always been a fan of, and especially with Shadow Realm Horror now floating around, I just feel like having more blue 6s be available to you is a good thing, and you know it can be a blue 6 powered 1 cost attack, which is just obviously really good.
Yeah, I think with both Shadow Realm Horror and Dread Screamer, that is enough reason for me that I would want to play more copies of Diabolic Offering. It sucks that it doesn't block very well, but I I could definitely see just like cutting the 2 red
Snags.
Graveling Growls and playing 2 more Diabolic Offerings and just having a slightly higher blue count because Graveling Growl, for it to uh, be able to attack with it, your Diabolic Offering would have 6 power, and that's only 1 less power, and you're getting a blue instead of a red. Graveling Growl's biggest benefit is it blocks 3 though, so and it does count as a 6, like always in your graveyard for your things that care about banishing 6s.
Yeah.
I have a
I
rules
like I said, I
question.
would cut the snags though. I really don't think it's worth the equity into to for new, I suppose. Just because it has to line up specifically on like their attack reaction turns, and most specifically it has to line up against Bonds of Agony in particular. but you already have good ways to kind of deal with that and the attack reactions in Scaling Flashback to begin with, and you also just have a pretty natural fridge if you want to deal with like the first big attack, and you don't want the games to go long against new anyways, so it feels like a misevaluation of the roles, right? Because I feel Levia needs to be the beatdown and the game as quickly as possible, because the more new gets to attack, disrupt uh, Levia, the worse it is for her, because her hero ability damages her, and there's some decent blues that you could also be attacked with New's hero ability that you'll invariably block with or banish yourself to your own cards. So you're just kind of feeding New's hero ability pretty naturally as the game goes on. And so I just don't see Snag really being that aggressive card you would need to help close the game faster, unlike Diabolic Offering, which would be like a pretty powerful attack that you could use to attack and the game more quickly. But
Yeah, and it would be pretty hard for the new to attack you for 6 with Diabolic Offering, but not impossible if they play like a blue Dread Screamer and banish a 6 from their own graveyard.
yeah,
They could
it,
also 6 you back with Diabolic Offering, but I think that's a risk worth taking, basically. I think that
you could even control it. No, it's the pass over banishes out of your opponent's graveyard. Never mind. I was thinking maybe you could pass over one of your own cards, but you can only target your opponent's graveyard with that.
Mhm. One thing about Snag specifically is it's a card that even when it is good, you don't want to draw multiples of it. Like maybe you draw two. If you draw 2 or 3 snags, even if they pump their thing over, then you don't have cards to block it. You just have all these snags. So like you can snag their attack reaction, but your hand is just more snag. So snag is a card that I also really like just playing like one copy of in a lot of decks rather than playing the full 3 because it's so bad to draw on multiples. And sometimes you draw 2 snags and your opponent doesn't pump their attack. They just attack you with Command and Conquer, and you look at your 2 snags and you're like, oh no. So
Unlucky.
I do like the idea of just like at least trimming 1 or 2 of the snags, maybe keeping 1, maybe going to 0. But yeah, it's definitely a card I don't want 3 copies of, even in decks that it's like less awkward and than it can be in Levia.
Yeah. Okay. Anything in particular interesting about the equipment though? It all seems pretty standard to me. Uh, Mandible Claws, Scalpskin Leathers, Savage Sash. I guess I need to ask some kind of Levia expert. When do you use Savage Sash versus when do you use Carrion Husk? Like,
So the main times that you want to play Savage Sash over Carrion Husk, in my opinion, I'm definitely not a Levia expert, but in my opinion, are spots where it's going to be hard to get 6 value out of Carrion Husk. So if you're playing against Zen, a lot of the time you're just not going to have a winner to block 6 with Husk. They're going to attack you for 4 and then 4 and then 4 and then or 5 and 4 and 5, and they're not going to have on hits very often. They're not going to attack you for big amounts. So Savage Sash is really good there, and you also just like want to have a big explosive turn to kind of get them dead. Versus Husk is great against like Guardians or other decks that are just going to present like big attacks, especially big attacks with on hits against you, and that's when you really want to have Husk.
I wonder. I think Husk is the more played chess piece into new, but I'd be curious to see how Savage Sash does if uh, you are just trying to get more aggressive, just try to get the new dead. I could see Savage Sash potentially being interesting there.
Yeah, Husk can be really nice against new, and because like she's going to end on a 6 power attack a lot of the time
Mhm.
with CNCs or weakest links are both quite good against you, and being able to just husk one of those at the end of a chain is very good. But yeah, I could see trying Sash there. I again, I'm not a Levia expert.
Yeah. Okay.
The the last interesting thing is we see a gambler's gloves here. I imagine it's just for like Prism, probably, where you're planning to roll Scabskins a lot, because most of the time you just want your Apex Bonebreaker
Yeah, and against
Kano, you have
Kano,
Grasp.
yeah, Grasp of Darkness. So no reason to put it there. Yeah. In the mirror, you probably want to be playing Apex Bonebreaker because you just care about the raw value.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
I would think so.
Well, it's nice that Levia finally got a result. No living legend points, so she'll be sticking around for quite a long, long long, 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 long time with Bolton still in the future, I think.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I think that Levia and Bolton both actually are like reasonable, solid heroes. I think that Zen being as good as he is kind of pushes out a lot of these heroes that aren't particularly good against Zen and are just like pretty good at numbers and efficient, but they're just like not as strong as Zen's big pop off turns and not disruptive enough like the assassins to really stop that from happening.
Yeah, and like if I had to do a tier list right now, I would put Bolton and Levia both in like B tier. So like a B tier hero, I think could still make top 8 of the Pro Tour. Matches go their way, and yeah.
Yeah, I think as long as you're dodging Zens, you're in pretty good shape with Levia as well.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But speaking of Zen, let's talk about the second place Zen deck list by Bartosz Ziemba. He Zened his way all the way to second place, almost got the first. So close, yet so far. Let's talk
Yeah.
about this list.
Yeah, I believe this is actually the second Pro Tour he got second at, which is definitely a pretty big accomplishment, even though it probably feels bad to get second twice at or
That's
twice at. That's a
I think
huge
I'd
accomplishment.
rather get second at 2 Pro Tours than win 1 Pro Tour. That feels like a better accomplishment to me.
Yeah, financially, it is not as good to get second twice versus winning once, but it is. Uh, I think getting second twice it does feel like a bigger accomplishment than winning once and not doing well at another. But yeah. So anyway, moving on to his deck. Um,
I have to. Sorry, I'm looking up the prize for Pro Tours now. I'm like, really? 2 seconds don't
the
equal what?
champion card adds another like $20,000.
Oh yeah, the special promo card. I
Yeah,
forgot about that. But you get like a gold foil.
yeah, a random one or one for your
Yeah,
hero.
yeah. Okay. All right. Let's see here. We got some Spellfree gloves. We got a Spellfree tiara. Really respecting the Kano over here. Got some
Yeah,
Tide flippery doos.
Spell Void 2 plus an Arcane Lantern. So yeah, definitely. And Tide Flippers. Yeah,
So
very.
AB2, Spellvoid 2, and your uh,
And Kasaya.
Kasaya could also be a prevention effect in a pinch.
Yep.
Probably not losing to Kano with this list.
You would think that, and I do think that Zen is favored in Kano, but some of Kano's high rolls are just like
Sure, nobody beats Kano's like turn 2, aha, you're dead. I win high rolls, yeah. Even in Living Legend, as we saw.
Yeah. So most notable things about this deck, I think only playing 2 copies of Red Descendant and 3 copies of Blue Descendant with the bonds. I don't know if we should call it a restriction. The bonds blue and yellow ban. You don't want to draw too many Descendant Gust Waves. I was leaning towards trimming blue Descendant Gust Waves, but trimming red makes sense to me. You just don't want to draw a bunch of Descendant Gust Waves when you don't have bonds. He has
Yeah.
several defense reactions with 2 wax on reds and 3 that all you got. That all you got is great in the mirror. You can blow up their needle and draw a card. Very
Yeah, but
powerful.
where's the wax off, Michael? You're
That
playing the
one's,
wax ons. The wax off's like a free include, you know?
is it a free include? I don't think it's a free include.
You wax on, you wax off, you transcend. The story writes itself.
Yep. So, so no, no flick flacks, no wax offs. But we do see. We talked about this earlier. There's 1 copy of Snag in this deck. The perfect number. It's beautiful.
Yep, one snag feels right, and I also think it also fits into the mantra that I was talking about in the Levia, where you just want to lean your deck more aggressive as possible. I wouldn't be surprised if it was even be right to not play things like Wax On. Oh no, Wax On's actually really sick against New, defending a attack action card with 0 cost. There's a lot of 0 cost blue disruptive on hits that New's presenting. Wax On's really good there.
Yeah, the fact that it just blocks 5 on a lot of things, leave no witness, bonds of agony and persuasive prognosis. That's pretty good.
Yeah, that's a lot of good value. That's a really good piece of tech there. There's even some battle you got floating around. I wonder if those come in.
Yeah, I don't know if they come in against new or not. I definitely think they are there primarily for the mirror, but they might be good enough against new that you play them there as well. I'm not sure. You do have to cut a lot of your blues against new, so
Yeah,
maybe it's just levels actually that you have to cut. The rest can probably stay.
yeah, because you don't really care if he's attacking you with like blue biting breeze or whatever. It's like, okay, have fun, buddy.
Yeah, there's also only one copy of Blue Biting Breeze. We see 3 this rounds on me, which I think is the probably the most unusual blue. We I was doing some,
Potentially a mirror breaker.
yeah, I was doing some testing with Michael and Brody for this event, and in the mirror, it seemed weird. We just really wanted more blue 3 blocks because you really want to kill their needles if they attack with needle early and your hand's not very good. And this rounds on me, it does that. It kills needle, and sometimes you're just going to have extra cards that you don't really know what to do with, and you can cast it, and it's fine.
But you didn't wind up playing it.
No, we ended up playing Sift instead. I think Sift, it kind of does a similar thing. And there are times when this rounds on me is better, and there's times when Sift is better. I think this rounds on me, you can't really play in other matchups very well because it just like is bad. But like you can play Sift against new and not be unhappy about it.
I would say, I don't know if you've ever tried casting this rounds on me against new, but it's extremely annoying for new to deal with. Not really a hero that can use like 5 card hands particularly well out of the time, especially if their stupid daggers swing for 0. Then like they just have no way to spend all these resources and cards.
They
That's a
just
card that's
block
been
it.
cast a lot to me against, but it's like very annoying.
Yeah, but most of new blocks pretty well. If they just like block with their cards, then you don't get that much value. The biggest value is when you cast this and your opponent can't block very well, so you get to hit them anyway, and they have to just like keep their hand and then send below rate attacks at you.
What deck does that? That sounds like a really
Zen.
bad.
Zen.
The best deck just can't block very well and sends below rate attacks.
Yeah, you cast your this rounds on me, and they look at their hand of blue, the Senate gust wave, blue biting breeze, blue winds of 100 wins. That's what it's called. And then they're like, dang it. They all block 2 or attack for less than 2, and then they block for 2 with them a lot of the time. But
Yeah. Okay. Reds all seem very standard in stock. Aspect of Biter Tiger, Bonds, Chase the Tail,
yeah.
Command and Conquer. You said the 2 red Descendant Gust Wave as a call out. Some E-Strikes, 100 Wins, Mauling Keys, Spinning Wheel Kicks, the Weakest Link, Tiger Strike, Swipes, and the Waxons.
Yeah, I think 3 CMC, 3 weakest link is not particularly common in these Zen lists. It's just like really trying to have disruption for the mirror with 3 copies of weakest link, 3 copies of CMC, and then 3 that are, yeah. It makes sense to tech your Zen deck as
And
well for
3
the
this
mirror.
rounds on me for the mirror.
Yeah, it makes sense to tech your Zen deck as much as you can for the mirror. It was the most played deck. You expected a lot of Zen, and looks like it worked out really well. He beat the Zens in the mirror matches. I think he played 2 mirror matches in the top 8 before he ended up losing in the finals to Uzuri.
Yeah. And I will say for playing this more controlling route, you are giving up some of that explosiveness. There's not any of that card that draws cards if you pitch a cheat. The name's escaping me right now.
Oh gosh.
I can't remember it. Pitch a cheat, draw.
Yeah, it's 4 resources. It's a blue. Draws
Draw
2 cards,
3.
3 if you pitch the tome.
Is it Orion of Mystic Tenets?
That's right.
Well,
Orion. I don't know how you say it.
Orion of
Yep.
Mystic Tenets, I believe is the proper pronunciation.
Okay, if you say so. Blues, other than this rounds on me, nothing particularly out of the usual. Bunch of transcend cards. There's just 1 copy of Biting Breeze, and the 300 wins as like blue head jabs is what we were calling them. So 4 blue head jabs and then 3 blue descendant, of course. Just pretty typical, I think.
Okay. Well, Zen's gonna keep Zenin. It seems like no getting off the Zen train anytime soon. I don't think.
Yeah, they banned blue and yellow bonds. Zen's still at least the most powerful deck doing the most powerful things. It is pretty vulnerable to disruption from the assassins, as we saw. Assassins been doing very well, and I think Uzuri might be the most able to take advantage of Zen's lack of defensive options.
So let's talk about some Uzuri. The out of nowhere I can't believe Uzuri's won a Pro Tour Uzuri deck list. I was bewildered when I saw an Uzuri in the top 8. I was like, what? What? Well, that's cute. There's no way that they're gonna lose in the first round or whatever. It'll be fine. And then they won the Pro Tour. It's crazy.
Yeah, it turns out there was just a sleeper hero that nobody was paying attention to that has a favored matchup into both Zen and New. So let's talk about it. So, the first thing to talk about Uzuri is this is not the same Uzuri we saw before Mysteria came out.
Right. There are some key upgrades with Bonds of Agony, Persuasive Prognosis, Pick to Pieces, and Justinic.
Yeah. So nine new Majestics just cleanly slot in the deck, and then the 3 picked pieces slightly better than the other blue stealth options, but I don't think it's by a lot. It's fine. It pairs nicely with your just the next to get 7 instead of 6, which most would. Though I do think that blue, in fact, probably a similar power level as blue picked pieces. You just are trying to get a little bit of extra equity into, I imagine, Prism and Enigma by playing the picked pieces.
Yeah. The real blowout is I think I went on one of our podcasts recently and I was like, yeah, but like there's this weird thing with the assassins where none of the cards ever play well and all the other assassins, like Bonds of Agony and Persuasive Prognosis and all these new stealth cards aren't really good in Uzuri. And then here is Uzuri winning a Pro Tour.
Yeah, it turns out that having a bunch of shreds and just the next does help your Bonds of Agony and Persuasive Prognosis be quite good. And you still get to play reaction stuff on both your gloves and your shoes. So we see Flick Knives as the gloves, let you throw daggers to get your reaction count up for Bonds of Agony. And then we also see Black Tech Whispers, which is another reaction that you can buy back. So you can use it repeatedly, actually.
Yeah.
Only 6 ways to generate silver with the 3 Leave No Witnesses and the 3 surgical extractions, but you can of course codex back Leave No Witnesses, one of the most common codex targets in these assassin decks. So yeah, it came up a reasonable amount that Shoma was recurring Black Tech Whispers in the rounds that I watched.
Yeah, I would believe that. You don't need a lot of it, and even if you just recur Black Tech Whispers once, it's like a broken piece of equipment, right? Like at its base, it's like fine, but the first time you rebuy it and you get that second block and potentially a second action point out of it, that's just a broken piece of equipment.
Yeah. One other card from Part of the Misspell that this deck got that's a pretty big upgrade is the Weakest Link. This is a card that we've seen a lot of this weekend. It's become basically very, very common to just play lots of the Weakest Link, but I think Uzuri is one of the best homes, if not the best home for the Weakest Link. It's a perfect swap target. Sometimes you even get a draw card when it hits them. It's just very good.
Yeah.
Isolate into the Weakest Link. Powerful combination.
Yeah, basically every single disruptive attack you can think of into Zen is here. Amnesia, Command and Conquer, Weakest Link, Shakedown, Leave No Witnesses.
Yep.
And then obviously the Bonds of Agony and Persuasive Prognosis and Surgical Extractions themselves count. Lots of disruption there.
Yeah, and with all these disruptive attacks, we see 6 shreds to force them through, 3 yellow and 3 red. Just not as many shreds as you can get without playing blue ones. And yeah, just seems really powerful to force.
If we look to the equipment, there's something very noticeable about this equipment, though. Yeah. Do you know what it is?
Yeah, there's not a single piece of Spell Void or Arcane Barrier in the sideboard.
Just scooping that matchup. And I think Shoma, even up till the very last round, he was just like, please no Kano, please no Kano. And the commentator was like, don't worry, there's no Kano. I even think in the top 16, you're safe. And he was like, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense to just disrespect Kano in these big events since Kano just can't draft. So, like, as long as, like, limited portions are a part of your tournament, it might just make sense, be correct, to just cut all your Arcane Barrier.
Well, it's also a thing where even if you devote the slots for it, your Kano matchup's still pretty bad. Uzuri is, like, a hero that it's not good against Kano. It's not like new where you have all these extra blues that you can pay to Arcane Barrier with. We see 15 blues, and a lot of the turns start with playing a blue so that you can swap it into one of your reds.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think disrespecting Kano, basically making room to play 3 copies of Hurl, 2 copies of Inertia Trap, just these cards that are like pretty good, or these extra anti-Zen tech cards like Amnesia. Whatever the card that would be the next cut is, getting to play that instead of Arcane Barrier seems really strong.
Yeah, and Inertia Trap, like I alluded to before, is a really good tech card into new in particular, keeping new off of Arsenal and just having that extra defense reaction. It's actually really like annoying and powerful in my experience playing against that card. I've never played with it, but I have played against it pretty commonly.
I believe Shoma played against a KO one of the rounds, and Inertia Trap seems really good against KO as well, where their attacks are always buffed because they're might tokens, and then they play their big thing without going into Inertia Trap, and they're like, just lose their arsenal.
Yeah. It's actually like a subtly like really powerful card. I'm going to be interested to see if it might see some more play going forward here. Mm-hmm. And then I guess I need to play this matchup more. I am not a new v Uzuri expert, but I guess I don't really get what else makes that matchup so bad for new.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that I would say I don't think it's like, having played very little of both heroes, I don't think it's probably very heavily favored in one direction or the other. I think that part of it being good for Uzuri is also probably just like forfeiting the Kano matchup, not playing Oasis, not playing any Arcane Barrier, whereas all the dudes are devoting slots to those instead of the Mirror. I think that helps a lot, just getting to play these extra D-Reacts. We see 3 Sink Below, 3 Fate Foreseen, and 2 Inertia Trap. That's 8 D-Reacts. D-Reacts consistently have been quite good against Assassins in the past, whereas some of the new decks we saw just were on 3, like Tariq just had the 3 sinks.
Yeah. And if we look to the most objective source of truth here, the February results for or Talishar results on February over the past month, Uzuri is 48% into new overall, so slightly unfavored. Also 48% into Zen, so slightly unfavored. So probably not a deck you want to take to Pro Tour, I think. There's going to be a lot of news and Zens in Pro Tour. You don't want to take a deck that's probably slightly unfavored into those 2 decks, you know?
Yeah, this is kind of like the thing where you figure out your plans and Talishar data doesn't exactly like, just because Talishar data says one thing, if your plan doesn't match what Talishar is saying, then you can probably do well. But
there is one matchup on Talishar that is worse than Kano for Uzuri. Do you know what it is?
Worse than Kano for Uzuri? Is it Riptide?
It is Enigma.
Oh, that was yes, I knew this. I actually, at Nationals, I played against an Uzuri when I was playing Enigma, and I was like, this matchup was way easier than new. I don't know why they're playing Uzuri. Well, it probably wasn't to beat Enigma, it was to beat the other decks. So
yeah, it makes sense to that degree. Then, like, why even play the pick to pieces in like this fan brace of determination if the matchup is also that bad? Just sack it along with Kano. Maybe there's some other way to get more equity, like play the 3rd Inertia Trap potentially. I don't know.
I do think that both Vambrace and Picked Pieces are useful against Prism. Well, though I guess you probably don't want Vambrace against Prism. Flick Knives is so good against Prism too. But
yeah,
Picked Pieces specifically, I think, is quite good against Prism too, where you attack with Picked Pieces, and if they want to have their Angel tank the on hit and instead you just nick it, then they just like lose a million life on their Angel.
Yeah, that's fair. That is fair.
Okay. And then just the fact that it comes in for 7 off just a nick is really relevant compared to the other ones. So I think blue, in fact, is probably the other one that you might play in this spot instead.
Okay. Well, I think that's all we have to say about the Pro Tour decks. Do you want to move on to this Victor Goldmain from the Calling, though?
Yeah.
Before or do you got anything left to say about Uzuri?
I think the Pro Tour top 8, it really broke down to 4 assassins playing Codex of Frailty versus 3 ninjas and that were all playing Art of War and all the broken ninja, new ninja mystic stuff, and then the one
Levia
Levia
also playing
that
Art of War.
was also playing Art of War. So it's interesting. I've said this before. I'm gonna say it again. I still think Art of War is a very broken card, and it's weird that Belittle got banned to keep Art of War around.
Yeah, I've seen that sentiment come up more post Pro Tour that Art of War really should go, and I've been pretty against that ban in the past. I think I'm slowly being brought to the side of it probably will. Like, it's not an if, it's just a matter of time it will go, just because of, like, when you think about the sheer versatility of the card between getting action points, pumping your all your attacks if you're going wide, and just also just the hand filtering, or if there's ways to abuse like that banish effect, like with chain banish we saw, that was basically just a free card, or getting this not the tiger, the little
Crouching
tiger
Tiger.
crouching tigers, banishing those tokens to the effect. Like, there's going to be more of these effects down the line. Like, it's just kind of inevitable where people or heroes will care about putting cards in their banish, or get access to like these token effects, or just have like these modular hand abilities.
Mm-hmm.
And Art of War is just always going to be right there waiting to just be broken in those heroes for now until the rest of the time, as long as it's around.
Yeah, and I think if it didn't have this banish draw 2 mode on it, then the card would be like not that good. Maybe it would do something else instead of banish draw 2, but even if it was just like draw a card was one of the modes instead of banish a card draw 2, I think that would do a lot to solve it just basically being broken with these heroes, like you said, the heroes that create tokens in their hand or get value from having their cards in banish, like chain. Like, I don't know. We'll see. I think Levia playing it with Shadow Pete as well is very, very, very powerful, where you have these Shadow Petes in your deck that basically are only they're 1-for-6s with no text unless you draw them with Art of War, and then they are a 1-for-6 that draws a card with Art of War. So
Yeah, and it even limits like design space, where if there are cards that care about being in the banish zone, like imagine something like, I think it's the it's also from Arcane Rising, where if it's banished from anywhere but your hand, you get the action point, or if it's banished from your deck directly, you get the action point. I can't remember the name of this card.
back alley broker or something.
Yeah, it's Dr. Mortimer on it. I can remember the stupid Plague Dr. Mortimer. I can't remember Back Alley Broker, so thank you. But like, if you wanted to print more effects like that, like when this is banished, or if this is in your banished zone, do X, Y, or Z. Like, it's harder to print those cards as long as Art of War exists.
Yeah, but honestly, like Art of War is really, really powerful and does some broken things, but they keep printing like cards that are honestly comparable power level. I think Codex of Frailty is an example, and I believe Levels of Enlightenment also falls in this category where it's just like kind of ridiculously above rate. So we'll see. I don't know if action needs to be taken against it, or well, it probably won't because it's Majestic and they haven't done anything about it for this long. But I do think that it is one of the most powerful cards in the game, and yeah, that's all.
Fair
Just wanted
enough.
to call it out.
It's a
All
good
right, let's talk
call
about
out.
Victor. No Art of
He's
War in
got
this
one of the
guy.
most powerful yellows in the game, in the Golden Sun. It's broken yellow.
Yeah.
We're keeping on pace with broken yellow cards. Golden Sun, baby. I think of Art of
Uh,
War, Codex of Frailty, Golden Sun.
yeah. Yeah. It sure is a 4 for 10 if you sack a gold. That's pretty good.
And when you reveal it, you get the Goldie Dew.
Yeah, but you were going to get a Goldie Dew anyway because you're winning your Trounce or your Test of Strength.
Yeah, but you get another Goldie Dew for your Viz of the Gold main estate. I
Oh,
think I saw somebody
that card's
attacking for
actually broken.
like 30 or something like that. Like they just stacked a bunch of like gold tokens the whole game, pitch stacked, and then made like 10 or so like uh gold main estate or like these might tokens, and then they were playing against a Riptide who had Buzzsaw Trap.
You got to do it on your Command and Conquer.
Oops.
Yeah. Visit the Gold Main Estate is really, really, really powerful. One of the best cards in the game. Again, it basically you spend a resource, you get a gold, which triggers your hero power to draw a new card,
Mhm.
and then you get several might tokens. If you have 2 gold in play when you play this, you'll get 3 might tokens. So you're basically paying 1 resource for 3 damage. Go again and draw a card. Wait, this sounds familiar. What does Levels of Enlightenment do again?
Block for 3.
Yeah, it also blocks for 3 and pitches for 3, you know? So I think Visit the Gold Main Estate, I don't think it's as strong as Levels of Enlightenment because it's not nearly as flexible. You can't use it as like a chain ender. You have to set it up a little bit, but the power is there, and the ceiling of it's actually higher than Levels of Enlightenment, which is kind of insane. If you have 5 gold when you play it, it's a 1 for 6 with Go Again that draws a card, and also creates a gold token if you need a gold token later for maybe your next Visit the Gold Main Estate the next turn or something. So
Yeah, very, very good.
yeah, the card's really strong.
It's just a shame you have to put all of these trounces and tests of strengths on your deck. And you might be saying, Roger, what are you talking about? You're the Clash hero. The Victor should be thrilled to be putting these tests of strengths and trounces in his deck. They synergize with his hero ability. They draw cards. They block well. They do all the things you want. Oh boy, when you draw a test of strength and a trounce in the same hand, or 2 tests of strengths or 2 trounces, when you draw multiple of these block cards in the same hand, I want to throw this deck into the garbage can and never think about playing this hero ever again. I tilted off the face of the earth playing this hero for like the week before Nationals, just because sometimes like Bravo's all red hands were pretty bad. Like it was kind of mopey, but like at least you can then like have more flexibility in a card you want to arsenal. Like Victor's floor is just like, what am I even doing?
Yeah. When you, let's say you attack your opponent with a Spinal Crush and they're like, dang, I can't do anything. Block with 3 cards, arsenal something. And then you draw your next hand and it's got like multiple of these Clash cards. It feels so bad.
Yeah. So I'm sure Michael Koch very skillfully never did that over the course of his run until the top 8, and then it was all over for him.
Yeah, I don't actually know what the calling top 8 looked like. I know he got 3rd with his Victor list, but I wasn't on coverage. I watched a lot of coverage being at home. So
yeah. And some other notable callouts. Miller's Grindstone is the one-handed weapon of choice here, which is interesting. No Titan's Fist, a Miller's Grindstone floating around.
Yeah, I'm not sure the exact reason for that. It's great to hit a Golden Sun when you hit them with the Miller's Grindstone, and sometimes the mill to threaten fatigue is relevant, but
You also got some thunks. You got some thunks floating around in here.
That's true. You do get a might token if you win a clash with a thunk. I guess the biggest reason to play Grindstone is the decline of Brutes, because Brutes were the matchup that you really got punished for playing Grindstone instead of Titan's Fist, where like you'd hit with it a couple times and then
yeah, you just have to Anathos in that matchup now, I think.
Yeah.
Which loses you a free gold source token, so your Visit the Gold Main Estates are a little worse, but you know what? Like you said, Brutes are on the downswing.
I actually think you might still just play Grindstone against them because Visit the Gold Main Estate is so important, but just hope.
That's fair. Although Crown of Dominion is floating around here too, so maybe it's like an Anathos Crown of Dominion angle. I don't know.
Yeah, but Balance of Justice is also so good against the Brutes. So yeah, it's tough. It's tough. I don't know exactly what you're supposed to do. I think that KO specifically is just going to always be a pretty tough matchup for Victor because you really need to win your clashes to do your thing. And when you draw your hand of trounce, and you lose your clashes, you're just like probably losing the game. Maybe separate out trounce against KO, but test of strength you can still lose.
Mm-hmm. And you might be saying, Roger, why are you talking about Victor then if you don't like him very much? And this isn't even in the Pro Tour, this is in the calling. I think
Yeah, why are we
Victor
talking about Victor?
and Uzuri have something in common overall, which is everybody says, well, you can't ever beat Zen with disruption because he just throws the fridge in front of it and then he wins the game and deals 100 million damage to you and you just lose the game on turn 3 every time. There's no point in even trying. And I just don't think that's true. I think it's like the finals of the Pro Tour wasn't close. Like I was expecting, like, oh, so Uzuri's going to do some disruption. Eventually, Zen's going to have their pop off turn, and it'll be a close game. Zen's pop off turn never came in the finals of that Pro Tour. He just died. It was like Uzuri won with like 20 life or something like that at the end of the game, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think very similarly, where if you just have the pressure and you are able to apply it to Zen appropriately, I think as good as Zen is and as high as the ceilings are, he is still a very beatable deck overall. Maybe I'm crazy, and I'm just over here off an island just singing in La La Land, but it's just been a little interesting to me to see how polarized the metagame has become over Zen when I do think answers exist.
Yeah, I don't know about answers. I still don't think Victor's particularly great into Zen because most of his disruptions face up. He has 3 copies of Pummel in this deck, which is like basically the only reaction speed stuff. So like you can be pretty confident sometimes when you throw your armor in front if they aren't representing Pummel that you'll know you'll get your full pop off turn. I think. And Victor's another matchup that like is a big part of why we included Sift in our Zen deck that me, Brody, and Michael were working on was because you just need to be able to block for 6 sometimes. Sometimes they attack you with a Spinal Crush, and if you block 8 and Arsenal card, then what are they going to do on their next turn? Probably draw a Clash card and then die. So I think that Victor is fine. I do think he's behind against Zen, which is not a good spot to be in, especially like pretty experienced Zens that are like reasonably prepared for the matchup. But I I do think what you said, Zen being beatable. I think Zen specifically struggles against assassins because he doesn't play very many good defensive cards, and he's so reliant on big hands to do his explosive stuff.
Yeah. And I think portions of heroes like Victor and New and Uzuri creeping into the metagame will then allow more decks like Enigma and Prism and like the more mid-rangey control go even over the top of these heroes. Like these heroes worst matchups to pop in. And I think given time, the meta should balance out around kind of this triangle, I guess. But like maybe that's just not the case.
Yeah, I'm just like I'm still a little bit suspicious of like the third level where like in order for the third level like going to like illusionists to be correct basically is these decks need to be as common as Zen and the Pro Tour that actually I guess that was kind of the case of the Pro Tour where Victor plus
And we even
New
saw that in like
plus
the second week of nationals, where Uzuri won more tournaments in the second week of nationals
New
than
won
Zen
more
did.
tournaments.
Or sorry, New won more tournaments. I'm getting my assassins mixed up now. I'm tired, and we're at
Yeah.
59 minutes. It's all coming apart.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair.
I think it's interesting because one of the most common critiques against New was that it's just a hero that's not fun to play against because when she does her thing, you're just not playing the game. And I think that's unfair because when I was playing a lot of New, uh, it was incumbent on me to really understand and play optimally in order to even do the disruption because New is a deck that has a lot of these 0 for 1s in her deck. And uh, you can just kind of fall behind pretty quickly on rate when you're not actually disrupting your opponent. And then also, if you not only allow your opponent like windows to go above your rate, but if your opponent also is having kind of like disruption against you, you're still a deck that doesn't have a lot of defense reactions and these cheat cards floating around that don't block, and you don't have amazing blocking armor. So it's kind of why the new mirror can be like really swingy sometimes, because if like one new is just popping off and hitting, that can be frustrating because you don't really have the tools to like claw back defensively a lot of the time, and it's hard for and your rates on par, right? Because you also have a bunch of these 0-1s. They have a bunch of the 0-1s. So like the rate parity is kind of hard. So I think the new mirror, it can be frustrating, but I still think there's a lot of room for skill expression there. So yeah, I guess just like for as uninteresting as people can find Zen games to be, I think New and Uzuri have the potential to be really interesting, really dynamic games of Flesh and Blood.
Yeah, that's fair. I never found a version of New that I liked. I didn't spend a lot of time working on her, but like just like the list that I was seeing, I was never very happy with them. I was like, you would do a thing. It was like the Victor thing where you get tempo, you'd make your opponent have an off turn. You couldn't block with your extra cards, and then you'd convert a lot of your cards into attack with dagger, and that just feels so bad. So I think that Uzuri being so light on blues, so red heavy, having a lot more access to go again and these shreds to like kind of just like react for zero resource cost, felt like it fixed a lot of my gripes with Noob just by playing Uzuri instead. But I don't think that the new games are not skill intensive. I think there is a lot of skill expression when facing any matchup where your opponent's like playing a bunch of disruption, figuring out how you should be blocking, when you should be not blocking, what disruption you should take, what disruption you should try to block out. That is very skill expressive. And I think a lot of the frustration from maybe Zen players playing against these new decks are they're loading their decks with 0s and 2 blocks instead of playing blue sifs.
Well, fair enough.
And Wax On, apparently. That card's sick.
And Wax Off.
Not that
You could have 2 Zen tokens, 2 Zen state tokens. Double Zen. You could be triple Zen. You could have a Zen hero with a Zen state token and a Zen state token. How do you beat the triple Zen? 3 of a kind, baby.
Block, or you just attack with Command and Conquer.
But then you only have to put 1/3 block in front of it. Oh, wait, no, because Zen himself doesn't block for 1. I'm tired, Michael. We need to end this podcast episode ASAP. I need to go to sleep. It's going off the rails faster and faster as the minutes. Do you have any final thoughts for us? Well, I can still form a coherent sentence, barely.
Yeah, like you said, I think the games are pretty skill intensive. I definitely enjoyed watching the top 8 and seeing so the players like they had a lot of tough decisions, like many turns. And if you go back and watch any of the top 8, you'll see. I think the players that made the top 8 played really well and deserve to be there.
I agree. Well, the next time you're playing in the top 8 of the Pro Tour, always remember, mind your manners. Thanks for watching.